Good afternoon, it's Friday, October 2. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. If you're watching online at onespotmedia.com, a special welcome to you. Communication Officer for the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, says more persons started to breach COVID-19 prevention orders after realizing they would not face serious consequences. She was speaking yesterday on Radio Jamaica's Beyond the Headlines against the background of recent attacks on police personnel who were trying to enforce restrictions on public gatherings. SSP Lindsay says there was greater compliance with the orders in the early stages of the management of the pandemic, as persons were unsure how the virus would affect Jamaica.
Persons were of the view that the restrictions were more stringent and all of that. So the moment they found out that it was really more about persuasion, it was more about trying to get people just to conform and to change their behavior based on their personal responsibility. And once they found out that that was not the case, then that is when we start seeing more resistance, that people will try to put on these events, knowing very well that otherwise from prosecuting them under the Noise Abatement Act for not having a permit. But if it's a Disaster Risk Management Act we're using, you go there and you see 100 persons, and once you tell them to leave and they leave, then they're not in breach.
SSP Lindsay says persons have been finding various ways to hold entertainment events and gather at night in breach of the curfew orders.
We have situations where you will go in and you ask them to leave one location, and before you know it, as if they organize themselves. If you leave the area, they go to another location and they congregate in some of these communities. So we are seeing different types of resistance. We are seeing where you will go into a location and there's probably a bar and you feel that nothing is happening. You may see some cars on the road, which might give you an indication. So they will lock down, but there are people in the inside. They have gathering on the inside. So people have found different ways to not obey the restrictions.
Meanwhile, 5 more senior citizens died yesterday from COVID-19 in Jamaica. The country's death toll from the coronavirus now stands at 116. The 5 deceased comprise of 3 women and 2 men, all from St. Catherine. Their ages range from 71 to 99. The Ministry of Health says another death is under investigation. Meanwhile, the coronavirus case count in Jamaica has increased to 6,704. 149 new cases were confirmed yesterday. The new cases include persons ranging from 11 days to 88 years. There are now 4,386 active cases in Jamaica. In other news now, the mother of a 3-year-old boy who was seen in a video smoking and drinking what appeared to be alcohol has pleaded guilty to cruelty to a child. She appeared in the St. Catherine Parish Court yesterday. Her attorney, Maisha Wilson, told our news center that she will be sentenced next month.
We shortened proceedings. Basically, she was granted bail in the sum of $150,000 with one surety, and she is to return to court for sentencing on the 5th of November 2020.
And the 3-year-old boy and 3 of his siblings, who the court placed in state care last week, are now in the custody of a relative. Children's advocate Diane Gordon Harrison gave an update in an interview with our news center.
So initially, when the children appeared before the court, the initial interim order placed them in the care of the state, while various checks were made with relatives who could possibly have been the ones to take control and care of the children. Those checks were positive. And so when the matter returned to court on Tuesday of this week, an order was made, a supervision order, giving the grandmother care, custody, and control of the children. So it means that they're all out of state care and are living with the grandmother, with the supervision of the state to support her as she continues to deal with the day-to-day care. The matter goes back to court sometime next month. For, of course, a check-in to be made that all is well.
The police are probing a double murder in Waterford, Portmore, St. Catherine. A man and a woman were fatally shot in the vicinity of London Avenue about 7 o'clock last evening. They have been identified as 24-year-old Keyshawn Thomas of Passagefort, Portmore, and 39-year-old Zanisha McKenzie, who was a resident of Brayton, Portmore. The police have not identified a motive for the killings. And we don't take a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, continuing the news. Greater support is coming for at-risk youth. This comes as there has been an increase in traumatic incidents involving children. Prince Moore has details.
From abuse to suicide and now COVID-19, Jamaican children need all the support they can get. Concerns about the mental well-being of the nation's youth have been heightened following 2 suspected cases of suicide involving children. It has caught the attention of the Chief Executive Officer of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, Rosalie Gage-Gray.
The allegations are that it was suicide. We await the police investigations. Our officers have been on the ground supporting the families as they deal with this traumatic situation. We are concerned about the age group, which tells us that we have to get to all our children as young as they are, that we have to support them, in the families, in the communities, so that they will understand that there are persons there who care about them and who want to support them and want to see them live to adulthood.
As incidents among children continue to escalate, the agency is teaming up with the Caribbean District of Optimist International.
We are still concerned about the high levels of abuse that our children are undergoing. During this COVID period, we have restricted access to the children, but our officers are on the ground and we are trying our best to get to as many of our children as possible. As we prepare for the virtual opening of school next week, we'll intensify our efforts to be in touch with them through social media and through other media platforms as we seek to keep them safe during the period.
Governor of the Caribbean District of Optimist International, Dr. Winsome Halliman, says entrepreneurship is the answer.
One of the flagship projects that we will have this year is igniting the entrepreneurial mindset of our youth. We recognize that many of our youth are unattached. Many of them have suffered. Many of them have passed because they have no alternatives. Many of them have been committing suicide. And so basically what we will be doing is engaging in entrepreneurial activities, give them some alternative. So we'll be offering a lot of ideas, working with schools, working with students to encourage them to get involved in entrepreneurship. That is our hope, that we'll be able to pull some of our youth off the streets. We'll be able to give them some alternative employment, because many of them have left school, cannot find employment, or when they do leave school, they do not know that entrepreneurship is an alternative for them.
She's confident the mission will be achieved despite the challenges.
Okay, there has been a challenge because of the pandemic, and we are not able to get out to our children as much as we would want to, but certainly we are still going out in smaller groups, recognizing that we have a protocol to follow.
Prince Moore, TVJ News.
The Financial Investigations Division, FID, says it has improved the efficiency of reporting under the Terrorism Prevention Act by moving the entire process online. The FID says the online intelligence system collects and disseminates data and is a response tool developed by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime.
The system was designed for use by financial intelligence units to better manage financial crimes, including money laundering and terrorist financing. Previously, reporting would have been largely paper-based, making it a tedious process for the reporting entities and the FID's team of analysts. Chief Technical Director of the FID, Selvin Hay, explained the benefits of the online system.
The suspicious transaction report now are filed as they occur. So if the financial institution or other entities are doing business and in so doing they realize that this entity or person, there's some suspicion around the transaction, then right away they are supposed to file that report to the FID.
Mr. Hayes encouraging businesses which are mandated to file reports to be consistently vigilant of the activities done by their clients which may raise suspicion.
Filing that report doesn't mean that the person is a criminal. It's the fact that it raises sufficient suspicion for the entity to become alerted to the fact that this is not in line with the norms, and so they would file those reports, and then it would be incumbent on the FID to conduct further investigations.
Enacted in 2005, the Terrorism Prevention Act is the main legislative tool to fight against terrorism in the country. Under the TPA, 3 categories of businesses are required to file reports, namely financial institutions, designated non-financial institutions such as casinos, gaming lounges, and attorneys at law, and institutions so designated by the responsible minister, in this case, the Foreign Minister. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
As of November 1, tourists will benefit from what the government calls an end-to-end health security. Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett explains that it is a health insurance coverage that will be applicable to all visitors.
In the process, for a small cess on their ticket, they will be able to come to the country, ensure that their testing is done. Whatever health requirements are needed while they are here on island will be covered. And if they are ill and become seriously ill, in fact, there is repatriation arrangement as a plane will be on the AM tarmac ready and appropriately appointed with paramedical arrangements to take them back to their destination in a prescribed health arrangement in that destination.
According to Mr. Bartlett, Jamaica will be the first country in the world to implement such a measure. He was speaking at the official opening of the Zoetri Hotel in Montego Bay, St. James yesterday. He said the opening of the hotel is also part of efforts to create a safe space for visitors during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So we're opening Zoetri Montego Bay against that background of being a destination where we could say to our visitors, come to Jamaica, stay in the corridor, have a wonderful time, realize your truest wishes and desires, revel in the culture of Jamaica, and go back home safe and secure.
We're going on to news in sports. A day after losing all 5 2020 internationals against England, the West Indies women have a new coach. Governing body Cricket West Indies on Thursday named legendary Jamaican West Indies fast bowler Courtney Walsh as the head coach of the team. Walsh replaces fellow Jamaican Andre Coley, who had been in the post in an interim position.
The West Indies cricket legend will lead the preparation and the development of the women's team at least until the end of 2022, including competing in the ICC Women's 50 Over and the T20 World Cups. It's not the first stint for the former pacer, as he has worked on a short-term contract with the West Indies women's team, including at the ICC Women's T20 World Cup in Australia earlier this year. The former world-renowned fast bowler has also served as an assistant coach with the Bangladesh men's team. Walsh has described his appointment as an honor and an exciting challenge, as he always wanted to contribute to the development of the game in the West Indies. The former Melbourne Cricket Club star noted that his experience, knowledge, and overall organizational skills will be key aspects as he develops a winning team culture, as the squad has the ability and talent. Since retiring from the game, Walsh has held several posts within the CWI setup. He was a member of the West Indies senior selection panel from 2013 to 2016 and was part of the panel which selected the squad which won the ICC Women's T20 World Cup in India. He has also been team manager for the West Indies under-19 and under-15 teams and has served as a director of the Jamaica Cricket Association. The 57-year-old has also been a bowling mentor for the Jamaica Tallawahs and a bowling coach for the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots in the Caribbean Premier League. Walsh, who is a member of the ICC Hall of Fame, is the leading wicket taker in West Indies Test history with 519 wickets in 132 tests. A former Jamaica and West Indies captain, he took 222 wickets in one-day internationals and over 1,800 wickets in 429 first-class matches.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Join us at 7 for the primetime package. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.